And we're back.
Welcome to episode 220 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
Perram, it's been the tradition that when a hardcover book comes out for second edition, we say it's finally here. We act like it's been a big deal. But the joke was always that there was one thing on top of the other, and we were getting drowned in hardcovers. We finally had a nice reprieve.
Right.
And now we are ready for the first hardcover of 2020, the fifth hardcover overall, the third hardcover in the Lost Omens line, Lost Omens, Gods and Magic. Ciao.
Yeah, we're about to be drowned in accessories instead.
Yeah, but there's some cool accessories coming.
They are. Oh,
the accessories are one of the few things that whenever there's a delay announced, I'm legitimately like, oh, but that looked so cool and sounded so useful.
Yeah, man. Jason Bowman was teasing pictures of the bestiary decks, and that thing definitely looks a lot cooler than I thought they would by just their description. Also, it's a big, thick box.
Yeah, it is a big box.
Oh, man. You know what else was a big box? I just got in the bestiary pawns. The bestiary pawns for second edition is significantly thicker than all the other pawn boxes.
I do want to talk about that at some point, but it feels like we've already gone too long without talking about Gods and Magic.
Okay. Gods and Magic! Woohoo!
Now, this is a familiar title, and it is a familiar topic for people that know first edition. Gods and Magic came out actually in the 3.5 days of Pathfinder. And then we had two fairly close together, one hardcover and one campaign setting book covering a lot of the gods. One of them was Inner Sea Gods. The other one was Inner Sea Fates. Yes. Off the top of my head. Okay. So this is well-trod ground. Oh.
Inner Sea Philosophies.
Yes. All right. Well, and there were also a lot of player companion lines that covered this. It's well-trod ground. It's important. It's very important to the campaign setting line. And it's also, the god books tend to have this different perspective on the world and the campaign setting because it's part history, part like just kind of an exploration on alignment and how it personally affects characters in Golarion. So yes, there have been multiple books on the subject, but it's also the only time the subject really gets covered.
Right. And it's super important for those sorts of characters to have a book like this because it's not just the flavor of the setting that this will talk about. You need actual rules for the different faiths that you want to worship for things like domains and favored weapons and alignment and spells and all sorts of stuff.
Favored color.
Favored color.
It came up. So before we get into the actual content, let's say before we get into the rules and the lore content, let's talk about the art.
Art! It's got some good art.
Yeah, Paizo has always been known for its art. Second edition has changed it's changed the tone to the art, but the art is still excellent. And I find that the Lost Omens line has the best art of second edition so far. And Gods and Magic, it continues that trend, starting with an amazing cover that I am very curious with somebody who doesn't know Golarion lore, what they see when they see this. Because to us, it's the Starstone.
Yeah, it was a huge deal. When this appeared at Gen Con on the slides, I was like, holy goodness!
Yeah, and then we've got Caden, Kalian, Eomade, and Norgerber, so three of the core gods. But to someone that doesn't know Pathfinder, they might see a rogue, a paladin, and a wizard, and some kind of rock that a bunch of skeletons are going to. So even if you don't know the significance of it, it's still a really intriguing cover. Plus, it's got like a Gothic church motif that's dividing everything up. So there is a lot going on in this cover and a lot that really fits the tone and the topic of the book.
There's also another significance to those particular gods on the cover. They are all the human gods that achieved the test of the Starstone.
Oh, that's right. That is cool. Of the core, I believe there was another one from the other deities section. Somebody else has ascended. Have they not?
Cassandali ascended by other means.
Okay, all right. We'll get to that shortly. But anyway, art is starting off great with the cover. Any art pieces on the inside you wanted to bring attention to?
Well, that opening 2-page splash.
Go on.
Well, it's got Lamashtu in her horrifying glory. There was some minor talk about this beforehand. It also have Desna, and I do not remember who the other one is on the front.
So,
but it's real pretty.
Before we go deeper, then there is something that I do want to address about this book.
Mm-hmm.
It has what I'm going to call the revealed Cylon effect. Do you remember the Battlestar Galactica from the early 2000s?
Yeah, I love that show.
All right. So at the end of the first episode, we knew, like, up until the final shot, we knew who 3 of the 12 Cylons were. And then we got a group shot of Cylons, and it all just happened to be those 3 actors playing everyone in that room. And then we got a 4th person at the very end of it. And then from then on, whenever a new Cylon was revealed, suddenly, whenever there was a group shot, that Cylon was there as though they were there all along. And so we kind of have that effect with most of the gods. Some of the gods in this book that we are less familiar with are canonically new. Others are supposedly they've been there the whole time. We just haven't been looking at them. The camera was never pointed at them. So that's one of the things that's going to be, I think there's going to be a weird divide between people that are new to Pathfinder from 2nd edition versus people that know the setting a little more. There are going to be gods that, like, the gods that people are familiar with is going to be different depending on your entry point to the game. And any chance you looked up and figured out who that god was while I was talking?
Oh, you were stalling for good reason. Oh.
I mean, it was a topic I was planning on bringing up at a different point.
Oh. I do not know who it is.
Oh, there we go. It is Milani.
Oh, Milani's a minor god. Does she even have a picture in here?
Oh,
yeah,
wait, sorry. No, people in chat are telling us that it's Tsukiyo. All right.
Oh, yeah, it is Tsukiyo.
All right, my mistake.
Bringing it up. There she is.
Yeah, you're right. She does not have giant wings. I don't know why I thought it was Milani.
Dustin and Alex are probably yelling at us right now for missing that one.
Dustin is, in fact, yelling at us right now.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin.
Chat is ganging up on us right now. They are right.
Oh, man. So, what was I going to say?
We're talking art.
Yeah, we're talking art. This is also the first time we really get to see full body pictures of a lot of the gods. Up until now, the gods were always presented as either avatars, or there was the occasional glimpse of a body picture, or there were like 3 different pictures of the goddess or gods. And this is the first time that they've just gone on, here is the canonical primary appearance of this god for a lot of these gods.
Okay, I was going to say, I remember in the original Gods and Magic, most of them got head-to-toe shots, but which gods were you thinking of you hadn't seen a depiction of?
Oh, things like Milani, who's only ever been a minor god in anything. Cassandra, we've got good art of her now. Caden looks entirely different. We've got this Gazra has art of both of his forms in this one, and we haven't seen that before.
Yeah, some of the gods look, I would say, exactly the same, and some of them have had some facelifts. So probably my favorite would be Touareg, because Touareg, looked like a dwarf, but you couldn't tell Touareg from, say, a high-level dwarven paladin originally. But now he's got some new glowing effects. His eyes are golden. There is more of a godly appearance to him that was like a lot of the gods as they were depicted in 1st edition. You could not tell them from a paladin a lot of the time. Most of them did not have that extra otherworldly element, whereas Touareg absolutely has the kind of thing that I was looking for in god depictions.
I mean, not only does his eyes glow, his hammer has eyes and glow. And I'm pretty sure that hammer can talk.
And I'm pretty sure it has his exact same voice. It's like he's talking to himself.
Well, he's got to get a second opinion.
But his opinion must be his.
Yeah, he can't be wrong. He has to be diligent.
In the other gods, Probably my favorite art is Chaldira, the Calamitous Turn. This is a halfling god of what's in there?
Battle, Fortune, and Mischief?
Yeah, but I was looking more for their edicts. Seek out and challenge oppression and tyrants. Yeah, there we go. It's a real rebel-rousing god, and reminds me of the kid from the second act of Les Mis.
Oh, yeah, that's a good call.
So yeah, there's a lot of rebellion and a lot of just like there's nothing left to lose in the eyes in that art.
Yeah, and this is totally like the patron deity of the Bellflower Network.
Are you ready to talk about the gods, or is there any other art we should bring attention to?
I don't know of any art offhand. I'll usually just call it out if I see it during our scrolls.
Sounds good. So the book starts with an overview, which I was expecting to just kind of be an introduction, but there's a lot in the overview. In fact, some of my favorite stuff in this book is from the overview. So not only are there's rules content in the overview, but there's also a lot of just good advice on how to adjudicate using the gods in your setting. I liked calling out what arcane casters and alchemists might worship, since they are probably the ones that you would think of least as the kind of people that who they worship matters. And I liked there was a nice kind of overview of the story of a barbarian and how the gods they worship changed based on, yes, they're a barbarian, but they fall in love, so they worshipped shoot, what's her name? Shelyn, I believe.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much worship. They worship a lot of deities, but offered prayers to specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely calls out that because the gods are very much real, people may have a favorite. People may not have a favorite, but they will still worship all the gods that are relevant to their culture. And depending on what you're doing, like that barbarian, you need to offer prayers to the one that can help you at the moment. This really harkens back to polytheistic religions that we have here on Earth, like the Norse and the Roman religions.
Oh, actually, that's a good point. When we were talking to James Jacobs a couple of episodes ago, I was saying pantheon when I meant polytheistic. So this is the kind of thing that I was looking for. If you've got a world full of gods that each have their own purpose, why are you sticking to one? And why would anyone commit 100% to some of the gods that are of very specific things? So the idea that it's like, no, this totally happens. You worship the god that is most appropriate to worship or give prayers to. If you are not a divine caster, if it doesn't benefit you to strictly adhere to one god, then sure, it absolutely makes sense to jump from god to god.
And in fact, we're going to get to it later, but it even has rules for being a divine caster that does worship a bunch of gods with the Pantheon rules.
It's true. We get a couple of pantheons later on, but before we get to that, we've got our core gods. So the second chapter is the gods of the Inner Sea, and it is divided into core deities and other deities. How do you feel about other deities being the label given to the non-core deities?
It's interesting. I understand that they didn't want to subdivide them chapter by chapter, but usually it'd be like core deities, other major deities, and then minor deities, which may be not accurate, because this is very much a view from the lens of the Inner Sea. And if this was a Tian Sha book, even though a lot of Tian Sha book gods are in here as some of the bigger players in here, but if this would be an entirely different core 20 if we were to rotate to Tian Sha or any of the other continents, for instance.
I am glad that it's not uncommon gods and that there's some kind of rarity rule applied to it. It really is. You can pick any of these gods and worship them. Some of them just have more lore significance and have more rules tied to them, but there's nothing gating you from, say, worshiping Grandmother Spider.
None at all. You can worship Grandmother Spider on Tuesday.
So also, we've got our core deities. Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned the rarity, and I was actually surprised at how little rarity played a role in this book. I kept expecting sections for rarity to pop up with access lines, and then no, they're just commons, such as like when we get to the feat section.
It's true. Especially, I feel like the Lost Omens line is the one that has been using the rarity rules a lot more heavily. And it is usually tied to region, tied to specific circumstances around your adventurer's life. And you're right, it's just more or less absent from this book. I don't know if that's a reflection like based on feedback about the other books, or if it was just always the plan.
Yeah, I mean, there are some uncommon rules elements, but they're like in the magic items.
So getting to our core deities, everyone gets a 2-page spread. And if you're familiar with the Lost Omens layout, you've got the 2 columns towards the middle of the pages are the ones where you have the meat of your content. And in this case, the outer column is just art of the god at their holy symbol. And then the outer of the opposite is some kind of significant piece of art related to them. I don't know exactly how to describe it, followed by their aphorisms. And the aphorisms are fun. They are the things that worshippers are likely to say about them. But the bulk of the content is expanding a little bit on the portfolio of who these gods are, followed by their backstory, their presence, their politics, and then the divine intercession. What do we got with divine intercessions, Perram? How would you describe these?
So, usually, this provides rules, specific rules, of ways that a god might directly interfere with the affairs on Earth. So that when you have when you ticked off Asmodeus, specifically, by name, and he knows it, it tells you how he curses you by forcing you to tell the truth always. So it's like it's got three each of the boons and the curses. There's minor, moderate, and major, and it is definitely like that. The minor ones are even stronger than I thought they would be for something called minor, but I guess they're gods, so they just don't even play around it for any circumstance. And
I also found... Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry. And the curses, they just all are horrible.
As far as rules go, these are very much rules light. Like, it says how to adjudicate them, but not exactly when to give them out. Not like there is not like, as a player, I could set my goals that I get the minor boon and the GM has to give it to me because I met some kind of circumstances. No, this is really based on the plot of the campaign or based on the character's actions. The GM can decide you have definitely pleased or offended this god, and you get the appropriate boon or curse. Mm-hmm. And I like that. I know that for other areas of 2E, I've been like, I need a little more guidelines. I need a little more crunch to this rules light section. But no, this is exactly how I think rules light rules should work. This is the right place for them. It gives the GM a tool. It gives the world flavor. In fact, even though this is kind of the rules section of these gods, I find you get more flavor and more of the god's personality in these boons and curses than in most of the other areas of their write-up.
Yeah, because it tells you like what would motivate them. Like, it's specifically what would motivate them to reward or punish someone.
And what do they consider a reward or a punishment to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a point, because like always telling the truth to some of these gods worshippers wouldn't be a problem.
Oh, and like a major boon of Callistria's is you always know the nearest person who wronged you. Like, that is the major boon.
That's a powerful boon.
It is, but to some people it's just like, yeah, all right, okay, yeah, I remember that guy offended me. And I'm okay with that. And Callistria was just like, you were okay with that? I have given you the gift of the direct line to your vengeance.
And it also specifies specifically that her worshippers do go outside the law to accomplish this. And also that a lot of her work...
neutral deity of revenge. I know she's usually seen as one of the good ones, but she is very much someone with her own agenda.
Absolutely. And I also like that all of her worships, they talk about how their temples are often closed off or have chambers because a lot of her worship is involving things that need to happen behind closed doors.
The balance of the boons is a little all over the place, which the boons and the curses, I think again is okay because it's a rules light thing. It's very situational. So Caden and Desna are back to back. Caden's minor boon is if you have too much alcohol the night before, you wake up not drunk. Whereas Desna's is you wake up with all your hit points back and all of your negative conditions are gone. These are both minor boons. One of them is clearly much better than the other.
Including curses. It takes a lot in this game to get rid of a curse, and it's just her minor boon. People have gone on quests to do that.
How did you feel about the amount of space that the core deities got?
I like that they got the 2-page spread, and it is pretty much like almost the complete first third of this book of just these deities, but they really are the deities that the story of Pathfinder rotates around. They're the names that are going to come up again and again, and it's really important as a GM or player that if you're going to invoke these elements, that you have a good, strong idea and options available to make that play fulfilling. And that's not going to happen if they were stuck to a single page, or worse, a half page or a paragraph. Like some of these poor unfortunate deities get a paragraph, or they get mentioned in somebody else's.
Do you mind going to page 25? I found a piece of art that I want to talk about.
Okay.
It's the second page of Gorham. Gorham, our Lord of Iron, the chaotic neutral god of battle, strength, and weapons. And on the second page, his associated art I like to call Sword Groot.
Oh. And while we're calling out things, I want to call out Rovagug's boons, because his major boon might be inspiration for awesome villains. His major boon is you can devour all. Basically, your mouth gets bigger. It has rows and rows of teeth. And anything you can fit down there, you can eat, including rocks and inanimate objects.
You said that's his major boon. That's his moderate boon.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, it gets bigger.
Oh gosh, his major boon is you can crack the surface of Golarion, accelerating the release of the rough beast. You gain the quaking stomp barbarian feat.
There is a little bit of Rovagug art I want to talk about, actually. So, first of all, I don't quite understand the Rovagug portrait. Rovagug, I thought I had a pretty clear understanding of what he looks like, whereas this looks like a lot more, I don't know, young Rovagug. Like, he doesn't look as big, and I don't even quite understand what's going on with the shape that he's taken right there.
He looks like a snake that's balled up.
Yeah, all right.
I've seen many of a cobra, not a cobra, a copperhead balled up like that.
It terrifies me that you've seen many a copperhead.
Oh yeah, they live right around here. There's probably one under my building right now. I like the other art. It looks like it's drawn in crayon or a cave painting.
So that is the other thing I wanted to bring attention to. A couple of weeks ago, I actually shared my original review of the original Gods and Magic. I shared it on our Throwback Thursday Pathfinder, and I was strangely very critical of the art. And one of my things that I do stand by now is that the holy symbols all look like they were drawn by an artist, whereas Earth holy symbols are the kind of thing that any commoner can draw. It's part of how the symbology spreads, because anyone can pick up a pencil and draw the cross, the Star of David, like common symbols. I wish there was more art like this Rovagug art of just like, this is what someone on Golarion witnessed it, picked up a crayon, and just did his best. Like, this is still very skillfully drawn by an artist, but it has the tone of someone in Golarion's perspective on that monster.
I like that he's eating other gods in that picture.
It's what he does. One of the many things he eats.
Also, Fast Frodo was pointing out that his art, because he's likely him trapped and skewered, it might be what he looks like right now because he's stuck in the center of Golarion.
And actually, since you mentioned chat, you want to let people know how they can find us?
Because No Direction is filmed live in front of a Twitch audience. If you want to join us, come by on Wednesdays, right around 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern when we record. You can join the audience and, you know, ask questions about anything we're covering. We really want your participation. You can do so at twitch.tv/No Direction.
Darren Caldemeyer has a point that I was kind of one of the reasons I asked how you felt about the amount of space they got. He is concerned with the limited amount of space they got in a book limited to the World Guide line so soon into the Pathfinder 2 release schedule. He's concerned there will be another God book in a few years from now. So I was of two minds, because it did feel like we didn't need a lot more information about the core gods. We know a whole lot about them, and the information we got is kind of updated on stuff that we've seen a couple of other times before. But then by the time we were getting to the other deities, instead of getting the same 2-page spread, they were getting a 1-page spread. And then the gods that we've only seen mentioned in a couple of places, the ones that fall under demigods and other divinities, they were really only getting a paragraph. And so it felt like normally that's the amount of space these are, like, the proportions are still the same. That if it was a god everyone knew, they got a couple of pages. If it's a god you might know, you only got 1 page. If it's a god you barely knew, you got a little bit more information. It still doesn't feel like anyone is that much fleshed out compared to what we already knew about them going into it. Except for, like, the exception being that a lot of the other gods, though this is their first really spotlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, some of the minor gods definitely got fleshed out in the softcover lines, the campaign setting line especially in first edition. And then Inner Sea Gods kind of spoiled us because it was such a nice, big, thick book full of pages about these gods. And then, of course, especially since Inner Sea Gods was mostly a collection of the god entries in the original Pathfinder run, the actual Pathfinder softcover adventure paths, which was pages and pages about gods. And now we are indeed just getting a couple of pages. I think there are a couple of good pages, and they definitely have a lot of the supporting rules element. But I get you are right that we're basically getting a lot less. And I actually don't know that we'll get another god book anytime soon.
Kitsune Warlock, Dustin, says that the art that's on the second page of the core gods, this is a cultural depiction. So I don't know if that's listed anywhere in the book and I missed it. It is consistent with what I'm seeing. And so that Sword Groot is supposed to be Gorham, as just built out of swords and armor. And so, yeah, now that he's said that, that does make a lot of sense. But what I was hoping for specifically was not just like art, and like a lot of these would still take a craftsman to make. I really like that Rovagug in tone, and just like, this is the street view of this god.
I also like that it implies what his worshippers must be like.
Because they like that he's eating. Like, you see this as like a celebration of that time he ate the 3 gods.
Like, if you really believe and hope that he comes and eats all the gods in the world and everything is destroyed, you're probably not caring all that much about making lasting art that other people can appreciate.
That's a good point. Why are they even drawing on the wall?
Well, they need to scare people.
Not going to be here,
and they need something.
That's true.
They need something to chant at when they are asking for the world to break open. I mean, they've got a couple of thousand years to get it done. That's when Starfinder starts.
Oh, that's what happened to Golarion.
Well, that's my running theory, at least.
Rovagug. Is there just a space Rovagug floating around?
I do not know what they did with him. But he is notably absent in Starfinder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. That is interesting. Yeah. I guess he is the world eater, right? And the world that he was planning on eating is gone.
Right.
Yeah. No, you know what? Your theory is pretty solid. So I did say that the area that I thought got the most new information and was probably the most intriguing sections was the other deities, the minor deities, however you want to describe them. The book says other deities, so that's the term I'm going to use. Some of these I am familiar from, like Besmara. I know the pirate goddess, a pirate queen. And Cassandra, I know her story, and I don't want to go into it because that might spoil an adventure path that people might still be interested in. Oh, and Grandmother Spider was introduced in Inner Sea Faiths.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm familiar with her because I know you were a big fan of hers, and so you brought a lot of attention to her.
Because she's cool.
I mean, there are a couple of go ahead.
I liked her so much I played one of her spiders in the actual play.
Mm-hmm. There's one of her spiders.
Mm-hmm. They're wonderful. Oh, I mean, I didn't even notice that she has all those limbs in that picture because I just sort of imagined it was an animation. Like my brain was just going, that's the motions you would make. And then wait, no, they're all there at the same time.
That's why she's such a good weaver. There was a trend that amused me, and it felt like maybe Pathfinder designers and developers were kind of showing their personality through, because there's 2 gods that are there about making sure artists get paid. And there are 2 gods that when you play a game, even if you lose, make sure that you're a good sport about it. One of them is Kurgus, the Strongman. The other one is one of my favorite gods that, as far as I know, is brand new here. Nivi Rombadazzle, a gnome gambling god, the Grey Polychrome.
With a name like Rombadazzle, how could you go wrong?
Well, also the Grey Polychrome. Think about that.
No, that's going to make my brain hurt.
A lot of, I believe it's a she, and there's a lot of like active contradictions in this one god, and being a gnome god, that goddess, there we go. It's completely appropriate, and it tickled me.
Darren Caldermatter is calling out that he hopes the Test of the Starstone never gets published, given it's supposed to be based on the person and not formulaic. We do know that we are going to see a little bit of the Starstone in the Dead God's Hand, which is going to be a big old thick adventure, standalone adventure, and it recently got delayed because Eric Mona working on it and is a very busy person. Yes.
Any other thoughts on the other deities before we move on to the demigods and other divinities?
I would just like Noctula. Just want to call her out because she is the Redeemer Queen. She is a succubus that is neutral because she was redeemed, and so we've got living proof in this world that even absolutely the most evil thing possible can indeed have alignment shifts.
Oh, Daigle says many, if not most, of the other gods were in Faith Golarion.
That makes sense. There seems to be a pattern in 2nd edition of stuff that just barely got some attention but got people excited at the tail end of 1st edition, getting introduced fairly early in 2nd edition. Like the same thing happened with
the Leshy.
Yeah, the Leshy was in Character Guide.
So, Demigods and Other Divinities is probably the section that disappointed me the most, because I've often heard of players that are worshiping the Imperial Lords and just like they're choosing their non-deity gods, their non-deity, points of worship. And it's such an intriguing idea, and it seems to be a popular alternative to gods that I wanted to do more, and I was looking forward to seeing those ideas explored. And so when most of these only got a paragraph kind of giving you a brief overview of who they are, I was kind of disappointed. I wanted more.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted more, but then I also it would require this to not be in the Lost Omens line. It would need to be like twice as thick as it is, and basically be Inner Sea Gods 2e. And I'm trying to give this thing a little bit of leeway, knowing that it was constrained to the page count it was at, and how efficiently it uses what it had to work with. And in the cases of the Imperial Lords, it did seem that they're only here so that if you have the 1st edition book, you can actually use that and then the stats you need are in the back in the index. Yeah, because when the ones that only have a paragraph, they still have their full rules, but they're in the index of this book. Or sorry, the appendix, not index.
That, yeah, you know what? That is a very good point. So yes, they are usable and there is flavor for them. I guess, yeah. Like, this is still a new line. This is the third book. We know the fourth, fifth, and sixth books, I want to say, or do we just know the fourth and fifth? We know
there's going to be. We know that we're going to get a Absalom book.
Yes, and then we're getting Legends.
And then Legends. And I don't know what comes after Legends.
Okay. So, yeah, so it is still finding its footing. It went from the campaign setting and the character guides, which gave options for how to explore content, to now it's just these 130 some odd page books. It absolutely has to fit. So sometimes we've seen, wow, that's too much. Like the character guide, I was complaining, it's like, it doesn't feel like it's broad enough. It should have been one of the two things that book covered. And then World Guide was perfectly great. This one feels like, oh, it could have used another 50 pages.
Yeah. Which is why I'm going to compliment and hit the next section simultaneously, which I love the concept of the philosophies and pantheons, which is what comes next, because that's such a cool concept. And I hope that, I hope this gets more than just these three, because only 3 appear in here. It's on a 2-page spread. And the reason I'm hitting that is because this was such a great idea, but limited to just these 3, they used half of the possible page count on this for a rather nice looking half-page spread. But like, it's really cool, but I would have loved to have more pantheons instead of that art.
So as much as I loved the overview, maybe we could have taken a couple of pages out of the overview and given pantheons a second and third, or like another 2 pages.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea, and it only touches the Dwarven Pantheon, the Elven Pantheon, and the God Claw. The God Claw is really the only one that isn't just species specific, and it is a cool concept. This concept of worshiping all the lawful gods, which includes Iomedae and Asmodeus at the same time. These two don't get along, but yet they're both giving you spells.
Well, and you can definitely see there are some times where they will have to be seated at the table on conferring on lawful matters because the chaotic gods are just being too chaotic.
Dang it, Caden!
Of the 3 pantheons, so Dwarven, Elven, and the Godclaw is super intriguing to me. And even though it's based around Hell Knight, just the idea of that's another type of pantheon. You take a single similarity that is across multiple gods that are very different otherwise, and you worship that one thing that links them all. I also liked it mentions in the description that Iomedae and Touareg are seen as Hell Knights to worshippers of the Godclaw. So we know that the art of the gods, it's often said like Iomedae is sometimes depicted as a dwarf to dwarven followers of Iomedae, but the idea that they're specifically depicted as Hell Knights, that's a different take on that, and I like that a lot.
So I really hope that in the fan community or future books, I want to see all kinds of, I want to see like the Weather Pantheon, where it's like Desna and Galsray and the Green Faith and all that not nonsense, but all that stuff put together. Because that would, like, there's just so much there.
Further in this chapter, we get some new factions. I don't know. How would you describe these?
These are the philosophies.
Order. There we go.
Yeah, we got the Esoteric Order of the Palatine Eye, which are basically the occultists with a capital O. In the first edition, they appeared a whole lot up in Ustalav, and they even were featured in some of the novels, so it was kind of cool. Then you've got the God Callers, which was one of my favorite things about Sarcosis. Was, man, that dude worships that bear, and he has that bear right there. The Green Faith, the Laws of Mortality, the Prophecies of the Calistride, the Sangpoch, man, I'm never going to pronounce that correctly.
Sangpachi?
The Shonti Animism, and then the one that was really interesting in like a really good read is the Atheists, because what does it mean to be an atheist where gods are a provable thing? And it goes through a really good explanation of what that might be like, what that means for those characters, what that means for those characters in the afterlife, and basically, you know, this was a topic that you might not have even explored or was a joke concept gets a lot of very serious treatment.
James Sutter's novels. One of them's Redemption Engine, Death's Heretic.
Mm-hmm.
That really explores the idea of not only an atheist in Golarion, a world full of actual gods, but specifically someone who's a divine caster. And like, there's just one scene where he breaks down and is just like screaming at the gods, and it's just like, leave us alone, let the mortals take over the world. And that's reflected here in the atheists and free agents, that it's not that they don't believe, it's some of them actively resent that the gods are interfering in their lives.
I mean, yeah, and one of them also argues that, well, there's all these powerful wizards and extraterrestrial beings and all these sorts of super powerful things. Well, how do we know the gods are really gods and not just uber wizards?
Some of them are uber wizards.
Right. There was the notable absence of Razmir in any of these entries, though. So I think that was a terrible oversight.
Justin, hold on. Continuing Warlock saying Luis has some extra pantheons. They are Pathfinder Society legal. Where are these extra pantheons?
Yes, tell us. I bet I'm wondering if it's in the web enhancement. Okay, gang, we haven't seen the web enhancement. Dustin's going to do a breakdown of that in short order over on the website. We just focused our efforts on the published book, and there might be every complaint we have might be completely solved in those web enhancements, in which case we look like jerks right now.
Well, actually, like, since I specifically said this book just needs more pages, that web enhancement is another, what, 15 pages? Actually, I've got it printed out here. I just didn't get a chance to get around to it. But it's something like at least 10 pages of content, I believe. Mm-hmm. I've got another thing printed on top of it, so that's why I'm having trouble finding a page number.
The OGL is like getting real big in these books and taking up lots of page count.
Justin Franklin is in chat, and he also mentions that oh no, sorry. No, it was Kitsune Warlock again is what I was going to quote. That if you have access to the Pathfinder wiki, then you do get more information about these. And that is kind of because the mechanic content is so light, and because a lot of the art, as good as it is, it's just depictions of characters we've seen in the past. This is a book that is a little bit redundant when you've got the Pathfinder wiki as an option. Like, the Pathfinder wiki is a completely, you know, it's legal. It's on the up and up. They're taking the Golarion lore and they're expanding on it, and they're collecting it and making sure that it's easily referenced. And that's also kind of the point of this book, because it doesn't bring up too much new information. A lot of it is about collecting information we know about these gods and just presenting it to a new reader. And so a lot of this book, I felt like I know what you're talking about already. And not only that, I know where to find that information if I ever needed it. In fact, if tomorrow I needed to reference something about a god, I think I would sooner go to the Pathfinder wiki than try and find my copy of Gods and Magic and search for the information there.
Yeah, but the Pathfinder wiki is a fan effort, not maintained by Paizo, and you know, it might disappear tomorrow if, like, I've seen community sites like that just literally disappear. PF Tools, not PF Tools, PF Database was like a humongously important website that collected lots of character sheets and tool enhancement, and then just one day it was gone.
All right. Strong argument. But anyway, we have gotten to the point of the character options, the kind of stuff that you won't be finding on the Pathfinder wiki. It is about 30 pages. It's about a third of the book. What are some of the highlights to you from the character options section?
Okay, so the feats are really good and flavorful, and they're feats, a lot of really powerful general feats that some of them kind of cross the border of what a general feat's supposed to do or a skill feat's supposed to do. Um, but they are definitely like, here's some options to take a character that might not necessarily be a cleric and slap on some worshipful facts. And a lot of them even like reward your character, like in order to make it, your character has to care about these religions. So a lot of these have, you have a certain skill rank in the religion skill just to even qualify for these feats. Such as Battle Prayer, which is a single action ability that lets you say a prayer. You make a religion check against will DCs and then deal damage. And this goes back to what I was talking about last episode with how awesome it is that they unified the game math like that. We have skill check versus will DC to equal saving throws. I mean, it's cool.
There is one thing that confused me about that. One of the tags on Battle Prayer is divine, and I don't know what that means.
The tags are often just descriptive, but so that means that this is definitely divine magic. If a rule requires a divine effect or divine effects aren't allowed, it's just a way to, you know, make sure that we know that this is not, you know, just normal magic.
So I was happy with Battle Prayer specifically because it was a damage dealing general feat. I do like I it's been my complaint about the character options that there were too many silos and that too many things were relegated to class feats, and that there is no just this is a class feat level feat that multiple classes can take or everybody can take if you meet the prerequisites. I would like more options in the direction of Battle Prayer, and I just hope that that doesn't complicate character creation, because technically this is the kind of feat that you would usually get as a class feat, but instead of it just being a class feat with, you know, a dozen classes as the tags, it's a general feat that doesn't act like other general feats.
Even more specific, it's a skill feat, which
Yeah.
means they're very common. Like, this is the alternative to battle medicine, for instance.
So yeah, I'm curious to see how this will evolve the game and how people will add options that and just how general feats and skill feats will be different within a couple of hardcovers.
This is also not new. There were multi-class feats introduced in other Lost Omens books.
Right, which is kind of the first step of what this is. But the fact that this isn't a class feat at all is what's interesting about it to me.
Yeah, I do like this direction. I like anything that gives us more options to make our characters more personalized. Next is another great piece of, and this was the one that confused me the most, because there are a lot of really good spells in here. And they said that these are spells that are often associated with deities in the Inner Sea, and almost none of them are available to clerics.
Huh.
Most of
Arcane
them
Occult,
are
Arcane Primal.
Yeah, it's Arcane Occult or Arcane Primal for most of these. Like, wizards are going to make, wizards and sorcerers, they're going to make out like bandits in this section. And some great
bards.
Bards, yeah, definitely. They're going to, and there's some really great ones here. I mean, you've got the acid burst, which is, I just explode with acid right in your face. That's a great, it's 2 action, but that would be a great thing for a Gish type character to have, because if you're going to be it's a first level spell, so it's something that a multi-class character would get very quickly access to. You're going to be in their face. It's a great option that doesn't make much sense if you're a traditional wizard, actually, because you're in their face. What are you doing there? That's a bad place to be, because this only works out mathematically in your favor if you're in the face of lots of enemies, and then you're going to do something that's going to tick them off. Great option for the fighter wizard or the fighter sorcerer. Bad option for squishy dude with a beard and a robe.
I want to make an observation that earlier in the book, Glonder, I'm going to say is how that's pronounced. So he's the insect god, the Gossamer King. And one of the cleric spells he grants is Vomit Swarm. And it specifically says it's going to be in the Advanced Player's Guide. It's not out yet. And when I read it, I thought like, okay, so it's not god specific enough to have made the Gods and Magic section. So it's going to be an Advanced Player's Guide. And then we got to the spell section, and the flavor, like there's no real flavor saying why these are limited to the gods. You kind of have to interpret why these specific spells got into this book. So it's strange that a spell that is specifically associated with a god is not here, whereas stuff that's pretty broadly associated with the gods are.
Yeah. Also, there are no rules here limiting these spells to any god or any requirements. They're all common. There are no requirements other than what tradition, what spellcasting tradition you belong to, and that's it. So honestly, this is just a bunch of cool spells for any character. The religion doesn't play into it, and I get that some of these might be in their in their domain spells, but as far as most players are going to be concerned, it's just a new well of spells and some really great ones. And the other thing I really like is there's several one action spells in here, whereas usually and unfortunately the spellcasters don't get to play with the coolest tool in the game, the 3-action economy, because most of their spells use 2 actions, and then you've got their leftover action that you've got to figure something to do with. But that's just like playing first edition. I move and I cast. And now there are more spells that do things during that spells, such as you can... I lost the track of it. There's one that...
Liberating Command is back.
Liberating Command.
Oh, Endure.
Yeah. Endure, which just gives you temporary hit points. There's Liberating Command. There is... Crap. There's 3 of them in here that I found. Time Beacon, which was one of the coolest spells I've ever read. You cast this at the beginning of your turn. You set a Time Beacon down. Then you take your turn. If you don't like how that turned out, go back to the beginning of your turn again.
And you know what? That's a lot easier to figure out in 2nd edition with the new action economy than that the similar spell would have been in 1st edition. Because when I played a Time Thief, there were options that were things like play out your full turn and then decide if you want to go back on it. And I was just like, I am not taking that option because I don't want to give everyone a headache and take twice as long on any given turn. Whereas I can see it a lot easier to keep track of with your 3 actions.
So besides the fact that these don't tie into the gods super obviously, except for they're probably in the domain list, a lot of them, these are still this is still actually a really good section of really cool spells. It's just, I don't know why they're here. And why do
they are
wizards
mostly
get them all?
1st, 2nd, and 3rd level spells as well. So these are spells that I could expect to see a lot of play at the table.
Which is why this is why I think that they're mostly in the list too, because of how low level they are. Yeah. Well, they're great. And then we get to the domains. So because there's a whole bunch of gods, there's alternate domains for the gods you know. There's actually a really cool rule at the beginning of this book I didn't touch on, which is, hey, you worship a weird practice of your god, or a different practice of your god, or an odd practice of your god. This is what that means. You actually can like mess with the domains that you have access to by taking this feat. And it also very much ties into the retraining rules. Specifically, like it expects that a lot of characters are going to have to retrain to take some of these feats to get access to this other parts of their gods. Specifically, there are the expanded domains, which you have to take a feat at 4th level to even get access to. The things that are your god is also good at, but isn't like, you know, at the top of the billboard advertisement. And then if that's not good enough for you, there is the feat, and I forget what it's called.
Splinter Faith.
Yes, Splinter Faith, where you just make up a whole new domain list for your god, and it can include one thing that wasn't in any of those to begin with.
Sorry, I'm just reading up on chat. Justin Franklin saying they are all domain spells for one of the gods in the chart.
The big chart.
We're talking about the spells, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's kind of what I thought when I was reading through them. It's just
it would have taken a lot of cross-referencing for a book that was already a dead read.
Yeah, but it's a really cool section. But why is it mostly wizards? Like it would have made more sense if they were divine. But I guess
because
if it's
as domain spells,
no,
clerics can get access to them.
Some domain spells are cleric spells. It's just what you can put in your bonus slots.
Sure, but now it's not. If you are a cleric who worships something other than those domains, you feel that much different from the ones that are worshiping just a god with that domain. Like that really adds a touch more personality and exclusivity to those gods.
And finally, we have the after the domain section, we have the item section, and it's mostly a lot of favored weapons. The first part is basically just the favored weapons that weren't in the game already for different deities, and then a bunch of magic items that are specific to specific deities. It's usually they're all uncommon, but they all have access, worshiper or follower of a specific god, which probably just means, like, how do you rules adjudicate that? It's because they're magic items and you have access to them. Like, are you going to the church and saying, hey, I really need the manacles of persuasion? Thanks, Zon Cathon.
Right, because so you've got like the bottomless stein, which is a Caden Kalian item. Access being follower of Caden Kalian. Does that mean that if, say, in Adventurous, Karok were to give Xavier this bottomless stein, Xavier is not a worshiper of Caden Kalian? Does that mean suddenly it's a stein with a bottom? It's just a regular stein?
No,
only in her hands?
No.
Yeah,
that's
so
not
it seems
what it means specifically. I'm thinking it's like you can craft it.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe your church, if your church knows where to get one.
Yeah. When you go shopping, I'm trying to figure out if it's too gamey to say that if your friend is a worshiper of this, they could buy one of these things to you because they have access and you don't.
Yeah, but that would be that's a cool moment in the role-playing game when you feel special because you're able to help your party, because, not every cleric is going to need the Dagger of Eternal Sleep. Actually, please goodness, most of you don't need that. First you have to be a follower of Akalek or Akakek. The Red Mantis.
Yeah, exactly. The Red Mantis god.
So there's not too many of those in most adventuring parties, but and also it's really only good at murdering sleeping people. But it's really good at that. It's really good at murdering sleeping people. It's basically, remember coup de grace? Well, here's a weapon that can still coup de grace.
And yes, I do remember it.
And then we end with the appendix, the very big table, which is all the rules for all the gods that aren't the main 20.
Super handy, not PDF friendly.
No.
You're going to want to print this out and tape it together so that you can see, because it's one chart that goes across the 2-page spread, and it lists it subdivides the gods into a section. So like ancient Assyrian gods, archdevils, demon lords is the first page. And then within that chart, you've got the name of the deity, their alignment, their title, their domains, cleric spells, their favored weapon, their divine abilities. So if you take, there's a certain background, right, that gives you bonuses to different abilities based on the divine ability. Your divine skill is similar. Divine feat is a granted feat. Key effects, key edicts and key anathema. So there is a lot of content on these charts that is kind of tucked away at the back, but fleshes out some of those gods, like you were saying, Perram, that didn't get a whole lot of information, but you get all the rules you need to be able to run them.
Yeah, I mean, it's super useful, and especially for me, because I like the Imperial Lords. I might make a cleric that follows a self-made pantheon of Imperial Lords because I like that too. I can go and grab my the book of, it's not the, what is it? No, it's not the Book of the Damned. It's the other one. I forget the name of the book. Darn it! It's part of that series.
I can't help you.
I can go grab that book once I look up on Google what it was. Chronicles of the Righteous. Thank you, Kitsune. Gonna go to Chronicles of the Righteous and then use this chart, and I can have access to all of that wealth of content and still use that book every bit as good as if it was a first edition book. I hope there's more web supplements and books like that keep making my old collection useful again.
I have a feeling that as the growing pains of what you can fit into a Lost Omens book, as they grow out of them, there will be less web supplements. I have a feeling the web supplement was just material that clearly got cut.
I know. There's not much profit in working and giving it away.
I mean, as an advertisement tool, drives traffic to the website. The glossary and index. I know that Luis takes a lot of this. The gloss decks. Luis takes a lot of pride in these. Yes, they are handy. They're good. Like, I don't really know what to say other than so far so good.
No, I like them. It's
yeah.
I like it. This is a great idea. I'm glad they're doing it. Also, what do you think overall? We reached the end. There's a back cover. It's got Rovagug on it. Right.
Oh, you know, it's something that I wanted to touch on when you went back and talked about Splinter Faith. There's a downtime activity, downtime activity for Changing Faith, which again, that overview section has a surprising amount of mechanics you wouldn't expect in there.
Don't skip it.
Yeah, that's a nice addition to the game. So, what do I think? I like a lot of things I wasn't expecting to like in this, because back in the day, I said, like, there's like too wide of a gap between options that are for people that are super into the gods and options for people that are like, you know, I'm a fighter. I don't need my god. I'm not a paladin, but I have a god. This is something I do. Like, every single character sheet has the deity entry, whether you're a divine caster or not. This book has a lot of options for the non-strict caster, non-divine caster. And I like that. And I was so used to those characters being neglected in all the faith books we've got in the past. I wasn't expecting them to finally get the spotlight and get more attention. Well, they didn't get the spotlight, but they got more attention here. So it feels like a lore book where I knew a lot of the lore, but it also snuck in a lot more stuff. Like, in the review, I think I grew to like it more than I thought I did. I liked it fine. Now I'm pretty excited about this book.
Yeah. Also, as far as the fact that we know a lot of the lore, we have to view this on how it stands on its own in a vacuum, only among second edition books, because there are going to be players that are going to only get the second edition books. This is the first time they're reading about the gods, except for the core rule book. We can't assume that everybody in the game, playing the game, has access to the entire back catalog of soft covers like us old grognards do. And in that case, I think it's a good presentation of the gods with the space limitations they had. Yes, I would love if this book was twice as long, but I'm going to say that about every book that isn't 200 pages or more. And the rules content in here, this might be the most rules content that I think is usable by all characters of any of the books coming out, because even the character guide was a lot of rules content for very specific characters.
Yes, and a lot of rarity rules being played with. So yeah, I didn't know where you were going with that when you started that sentence, but I can't argue with it now that it's done.
Yep. And you can pray so hard goblins explode.
Goblins specifically?
Well, all things, but goblins usually don't have enough hit points, so yeah.
All right, what time is it? 10 o'clock.
Yep. Yeah, this was short.
We got some news.
We got news! Okay. Be right back with the news.
Pathfinder news. Pathfinder news. Pathfinder news. Pathfinder news.
And we're back.
In the Pathfinder news segment, we talk about the things that are relevant to the Pathfinder players, the news that's happening in the gaming industry, relevant to us. Not necessarily on the tabletop, though, such as the top story today is Owlcat's Wrath of the Righteous Kickstarter has launched.
Yay! More
Perram,
Pathfinder
who's
video
Owlcat
games.
Games? There you go, Pathfinder video games.
Mhm.
What should people know Owlcat Games for?
They made Kingmaker. That was their first game. It's a new studio based out of Russia that started making turn-based RPGs. Well, actually, real-time with pause RPGs. They're not turn-based. Basically, the old BioWare games. They're making the old BioWare games to the point that the cursors look exactly like the BioWare cursors. Those old Infinity Engine games. And that's great, because that's exactly what we wanted. That is exactly what we wanted out of the Pathfinder video game, and they gave it to us. And they're going to do it again with the Wrath of the Righteous.
Yeah, we talked about this when it was announced. Wrath of the Righteous was an adventure path that seemed to intrigue and unfortunately disappoint a lot of people. So it's one of the best candidates for being revisited in a video game format. They're rethinking how mythic tiers work, but mythic tiers do play, or sorry, the mythic paths do play a part in, or will play a part in this video game when it comes out. And I guess people are excited because it has already funded, which it was a lot faster to fund than Kingmaker was before it.
Yeah, yeah, it's funded. This is its second day as of this recording that this thing is up. So much so that Kick Track told me to come back later when I tried to see its trend. And then for comparison, I'm going to pull it up on screen. It took Kingmaker a roughly halfway through its campaign to fund. It started on, looks like June the 3rd and funded on June the 22nd. So that's a lot more than 2 days. Also, Kingmaker was asking for more. They were asking for 600,000. This is only asking for 400,000. No, it was only asking for 300,000. It has 400,000 as of when I last looked at it. But still, that's still, even all that taken into account, that's still a lot faster.
It's at almost 600,000 Canadian. So it's gone up since we started recording.
So they should make it up there. They're getting more out of it.
Oh, if only that's how that worked.
Oh.
We are getting all of the base classes from the first game, plus we are getting the Arcanist, Blood Rager, Shaman, Oracle, and Witch were the ones that were added, were the new classes that were added in the description. But we already know our first stretch goal, which was the War Priest, has also been added. And I think War Priest would be a lot of fun in Wrath of the Righteous.
And honestly, that's a crowd-pleasing favorite. That's a good choice. Because you want to be a paladin, but you don't want to be a paladin.
I'm also like Blood Rager is a crowd pleaser. I'm surprised Arcanist and Shaman made the. No, you know what? Shaman was also pretty popular. Arcanist, that's more up your alley. Is that a class that you liked when it first came out?
Arcanist really rocked the boat, and it uses rules that a lot of people have been asking for in this game for a long time. 5th edition basically made all spellcasters Arcanist when it launched, 5th edition D&D, and a lot of people expected that 2nd edition Pathfinder would follow in that footpath, especially since they released the Arcanist late in the game's life cycle. And I was surprised when they didn't, honestly, myself. I don't mind it because I do like playing around with prepared versus spontaneous and cheating your way around the prepared by tucking a crap ton of scrolls in your back pocket. But I can understand why it would have been an easier path. So the Arcanist is basically all the advantages of being a wizard with the convenience of a sorcerer, only you get to cast a lot less spells.
We also have, as of now, one new race, the Dhampir. Now, I was thinking like, oh, Wrath of the Righteous, Aasimar and Tiefling should be on the list, but I just went and double-checked. They were both in Kingmaker. I believe they were in expansion packs. So Kingmaker had Aasimar, Dwarves, Elves, Gnomes, Half-Elves, Half-Orcs, Halflings, Humans, and Tieflings. So the most likely candidates for Wrath of the Righteous, for Wrath of the Righteous were already considered. Dhampir is not thematically the best choice for Wrath of the Righteous, but it's also a super popular race choice.
Yeah, I mean, the only other crowd pleasers would have been like Kobold.
Goblin's not on the list yet.
Oh yeah, why isn't Goblin on the list? They should totally be one.
I don't know what to tell you. I expect it to be a stretch goal.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially, if they need to make a last minute push. They do call out specifically, like we've kind of been hinting around that this is a first edition game, but they call that out specifically in giant boldface type. Pathfinder first edition rule set. So if you are a fan of first edition, you will get to continue to use those rules through this game.
Now, remember, Kingmaker was something that I always said, like, oh, whenever there was like, hey, there's going to be an adventure path getting certain attention in like a card game or whatever, Kingmaker was always my guess. And it was never Kingmaker until the Kingmaker video game came out. And then suddenly there was the collected and updated Kingmaker for second edition that was crowdfunded on the game specific crowdfunding site that I don't remember the name of.
Yeah, and Legendary's spearheading that project.
So, but my thinking is that because the video game brought so much attention to Kingmaker, to some people, Kingmaker is synonymous with Pathfinder, and that's why that direction went. So I wonder if we're going to see something similar, that after Wrath of the Righteous, the computer game comes out, if it's going to be updated to second edition in a similar way to the Kingmaker one was.
I don't know. Because that requires a lot more overhead than is simple. Like, in a lot of ways, Kingmaker is simple to bring over. It's just an adventure path with a lot of hex crawling. So it uses pretty much standard character rules. And Wrath of the Righteous would require a lot of overhauling because it really relied on a rule set, the mythic rules, that just ain't existing yet.
And I guess Legendary hasn't made second edition mythic tiers, have they?
I haven't seen it. Also, the other reason I think that Wrath of the Righteous was chosen is because it's the other adventure path that uses the hex crawling armies and city building stuff.
I had not considered that, but yes, that is 100% true.
And that was really fun. That's a really fun part of Wrath of the Righteous. That's one of the parts my group enjoyed thoroughly, was hex crawling around, building up this cool city, marching little armies around. That was all great.
Have you pledged to Wrath of the Righteous yet?
Not yet. But
what are you thinking? For sure?
Yeah. And I'm probably just going to, well, I don't want to bias any of our listeners on this one. I will pledge in. That's what I'll say.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't yet, mostly because I've got Kingmaker with only like 3 sessions into it. There were 3 long sessions and whatnot, but it's just clearly not part of my lifestyle right now. So I would like to get back to Kingmaker at some point. Who knows when I will? And until I do, I'm not going to chip in for another game. I know that's almost heretical to say I'm not going to buy something that I could theoretically enjoy, because I doubt I will actually get around to it. That's just the point I'm at in my life right now, Perram.
I understand. These games are uber time investments, and it's kind of hard to fit that into modern adult life with children.
And that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Thankfully, I am single and no kids. I can play the crap out of this.
Kitsune Warlock, Dustin once again in chat, but the reason I'm saying Kitsune Warlock is saying, if only I could think of any other race they could put in the game.
It would be ironic if it was, because it was this campaign in PFS where the Kitsune got added as common and stayed that way.
Was it?
The Aasimar, the Tiefling, and the Kitsune, right?
Yes, you are right. Next item in our news docket is the one that if anyone was listening last week or last episode, I was trying to remember an important news item and I just could not. And it was this. It's that the Diamond Comic Distributor's Top 100 Games of the year 2019 was released. And it has, some might say, a shocking amount of Pathfinder on it, including Pathfinder 2nd Edition Core Rulebook as their #1 selling item in the games category.
And for just some clarification, Diamond is the biggest distributor to hobby shops. They do not distribute Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast distributes directly. But they are also the only way to buy Pathfinder, stock Pathfinder in your store. They're the only distributor that distributes Pathfinder, at least as of the last time I worked with these companies. And they are by far and away the biggest distributor to comic hobby game stores that there is. There are some other distributors, but they are dying out fast. And Diamond keeps buying them.
So with Wizards of the Coast off the list, what is the significance of this top 100 sellers?
Well, it basically, except for Wizards of the Coast, how Pathfinder is comparing to every other game, basically. Every other game that distributes through the main channel.
And it should be pointed out, it's not top 100 role-playing game products. It's top 100 games.
Yeah.
So
that includes board games.
Board games, card games.
Yeah. A lot more board games are probably distributed through Southern Hobby. But Diamond is definitely a big player on that.
So a couple of weeks before this came out, the ICV2 top 5 role-playing games of the year came out. And while Pathfinder was number 3, I believe, there was specific commentary saying it was selling better than game stores were expecting. And so I think this is continuing to show that anyone that might have been concerned about second edition and how well it would do, it launched strong, and from what I'm seeing, it continues to stay strong with its Lost Omen line.
Yeah, real quick before we jump back into that, Kitsune Warlock has provided us with another correction. Aasimar Tiefling and Tengu were made common with the Year of the Demon, and it was the next season, the Tian Sha one, where Aasimar and Tiefling were retired, the Gaji, Kitsune, and Wei Yang came in.
Thank you, Dustin, for keeping us honest. I appreciate having a fact checker in chat. That's part of the network. So yeah, Dustin, continue to correct us when we're wrong, please. Perram, I mentioned that the commentary was that game stores might have been a little bit weary about second edition based on the playtest.
Yeah.
Based on what had led up to second edition, which brings me to we're out of the news section and into some banter. And a few weeks ago, I was in Chapters, my local big brand bookstore, and I took a picture of the gaming section and showed like the Pathfinder books were all over the place. There was first edition, second edition, and playtest stuff all mixed in together. It was a mess. And I went back and I cleaned it after I talked to a former employee of Chapters that was a friend of mine. And he was like, no, that's fine. We don't care when people do that. People do that a lot in bookstores. So I fixed it up. But when I took the new picture, it really showed there was a lot of playtest stuff just lingering on those shelves. And what should they do with it?
I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing with my local game stores. My local bookstores are the same way. Our big box bookstores are the same way. Every time I go in there, there's Pathfinder playtest collector's editions, just like nice and stocked on the shelf. I do not know what to do with that stock, because having that stock on those shelves is harmful to Pathfinder. It's confusing the customers that these things are still out there. It gives a bad impression of Pathfinder 2nd edition, or at least a misleading one. And I mean, they're useless at this point. Like, I don't know what to do with mine. Sorry. Like, I've got a stack of the darn things here because I got them for all our groups so we could play test the crap out of it. And I don't know what to do with them. I think I'm just going to box them up.
Yeah, they are not the collector's items that the original beta playtest book was, the first edition one.
I love my beta playtest. It was so good.
So yeah, I am just looking at this picture again, and there is no second edition core rulebook. There's a first edition one. There are multiple playtest core rulebooks, and there is the second edition bestiary. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it causes confusion about what exactly is Pathfinder. You need to really know your stuff if you are shopping in a store like this. So like this is the kind of store you would go to if you are buying a present for a family member that is into a role-playing game.
Ooh.
And if I had to explain specifically what book I wanted and which ones to avoid, like I know I would just get a gift certificate.
Yep.
Like you asking for a gift with instructions tends to mean I'm not getting that gift.
Mm. Oh my goodness. And it just looks bad for the game too if it has all this old stock that isn't going anywhere on the store shelf. Especially since the core rulebooks aren't on the store shelves because they're still selling out every time they're stocked. That's what happens at my store, at least. They stock them up, they're gone in a couple of days. And they have to stock them up again. And there had to be reprints, and a lot of the books are having to be reprints. So the fact that it's both selling really well, and that means that the only things on the shelf is this old version of the game, just means it's extra likely that people are going to get confused and accidentally buy these products. I don't know how you do that. I mean, I can talk to my local game stores and say like, hey, you might want to blow that out for $1 or something and get it off the shelf.
Yeah. But is that good for Pathfinder either? It means that more people have the playtest version of the rules. And that's like, it's a curiosity. It's something that a collector might enjoy just for, I always get this word wrong. Posterity. For posterity. But like, you don't want someone interested in role-playing games getting that game because it's janky. It's incomplete rules.
Right. I mean, at least it says playtest right on the cover. And
well, it says it under the logo, which you know, I'm looking at the spines, but you're right. I think on the full cover it was a little clearer that that's playtest.
But yeah, it's just not good. If I ran a game store still today, if I was still managing that game store, I would have taken all of these and put them in the garbage.
Wow. I might go back to chapters then and just hide them. I was told I could reorganize the shelves, but I think that might be going too far.
Yeah. Just books aren't supposed to be shelved behind all the other books.
But you know what? It makes a whole lot more room on the shelf. It's really a great way of doing it. Just not at a bookstore.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and these are books that take up the whole shelf, so it would be obvious.
Now, Perram, something that I mentioned when we were talking about Gods and Magic is that the last 2 pages you're probably going to want to print out if you have the PDF.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up an intriguing topic for banter that rang really true to me. Yeah. And that is the idea of printing PDFs when you already own the print copy of the book.
Yeah, I find myself doing this over and over and over again. And it started because of all my PFS gaming. When I show up to a PFS session, those are only PDFs. I don't like using digital tools because I can't guarantee I still have internet access. I don't want to rely on battery life. I need to know that nothing can go wrong with this game that I'm going to travel and run. So I make sure I have printed out copies of all the materials I need. And so what I found myself doing is just writing right on the pages, hit points, like this is dead, cross it off. They found this, check, highlight this, remember this name in the margins, all that sort of stuff that I would be deathly afraid to do in my actual copies because I like to preserve the collector's aspect of them. And I have absolutely no hesitation writing on my printouts. So I've started doing that for my home games as well. So I'm running Age of Ashes. I have all of Age of Ashes in standard format. It is still useful to have those copies because it's much more comfortable to read those bounded copies when I'm laying around in a lounge, as opposed to something that's spiral bound or in a notebook, which is what I've got, a 3-punch book with them all printed out in it. But when I'm at the game table, it's those printouts that I'm using. I am running through that. I'm writing like what exact puzzle solution they went with. I'm putting NPC notes in the margin. Like, I invented this character. This is the name I used. They live here. Draw an arrow. And just going nuts on it. And it's so liberating to just be able to mark the crap out of these books without ruining them.
So you're mostly doing this with adventures and maybe bestiaries?
Yeah, I do print out bestiaries because I want those to have those stats on hand. That might not be important soon, but but yes, I always print out the bestiary entries for monsters I know I'm going to be using because it is so much easier to have those stats on a printout page than to haul out a bestiary in the middle of the game. Though I still keep the bestiary handy because players do things you don't expect.
I forget. Are the bestiary cards tarot sized, or is it a standard size of some kind?
I don't know. I do not think so. I think there are some standard size, but I don't know what it's called, and I think it's bigger than a tarot deck. They are saying in chat, Adam Daigle is saying it's 4 inches by 6 inches. So that's a large index card, is what it is. It's a large index card.
What I want to know is, are there card sleeves for it? Because I know there are tarot card sleeves. If there are card sleeves, you can write on your bestiary cards without having to write on the cards.
Let me look it up now. Like I said, that's a standard size for, yeah, there totally are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're not astronomically priced?
BCW makes them, so I'm guessing not.
Okay.
And it's $4 for a sleeve of 100.
Okay. There's more than 100 monsters, but I think that's given us... Oh, there we go. Apparently, according to Kitsune Warlock, there's even hard sleeves for these. For what I was specifically thinking, a soft sleeve will do. Although a hard sleeve, I guess you can get them autographed by the artists or the designers.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
Like, that's immediately where my brain goes when I hear a hard sleeve, that it's something you want to preserve, not use. Yeah. Oh, man, that could be fun. Daigle is so excited to get these. Well, and you're going to get them like a month before the rest of us, Daigle. So, meh. I'm just jealous. I also want these. This is one of the products that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah. This is definitely on my short list of things to review.
Oh, he points out this is going to make running green blood on a black rock so much easier. Green blood on a black rock is his PaizoCon, basically monster battle royal that he runs. And yeah, I can definitely see you just hand a character or a player their monster card, and it's basically their character sheet.
Have you ever been to Green Blood on the Black Rock?
I have lingered around it a few times.
That rock is bigger than you think it is. It is a huge rock. It's
covered in green blood.
It's a great presentation.
Daigle says one super cool thing about these and the pawns that we have art for every stat block, whether they got art in the book or not. Oh, that's cool. I know that in previous pawn boxes, things like the elementals needed new art made because usually you just had one elemental and it didn't represent all the different sizes. Although now that doesn't work because elementals of different sizes are also very specific, different shapes and stuff in second edition. But cool. That is good to know that if stats exist, art will exist in some capacity at some point.
Yeah. Do want to call out that the ones in the bestiary are specific shapes, but we have canonical stuff of elementals appearing as different things, but you just use the custom monsters to make those.
Go on.
Like in PFS, you can find like water elementals that look like this and etc.
Ah, cool. Good to know.
And I want to try to figure out a way to get a card rim. I know they make these. They do make these. I know they make
a card rim.
A long edge to put on the edge of my table in front of my Game Master screen that cards will stand in.
Okay.
Like, I know they make these. They are all over Gen Con. I just need to know what to Google to find it.
Dogmate makes those. I think they're just called card holders or card displays. You can also just see if you can find a couple of thrift store copies of Scrabble.
I could just buy a block of wood.
There's that too.
I forgot I craft things. I'm about to build my own table. So yes, I should just do that. If I could just carve this in the table I'm making.
So the reason that I was really intrigued by this topic is that on your recommendation, I picked up the Excellence, which is very much the She-Ra role-playing game. There you go. You have your hard copy there.
Mhm.
And when I opened it up, I was not super happy with how close to the spine the words are printed and how hard it
Yeah.
makes it to read the book.
Yeah, you're going to tear
And
this book up if you used it as a reference during play.
yes, so now I plan on getting the PDF and printing out a full color version of that book that I just bought as a physical copy, which cost me 12 bucks Canadian, and printing it out will probably cost me at most another 12 bucks Canadian, because I do want to get it in color, because it is really nice art and a very nice color palette, very pleasing.
Yeah, like
And there's some specific
character
pages that I'll
sheet.
need multiple copies of. Yeah, it's pretty, but every person that I showed it to, and no matter how jazzed I was and how positively I talked it up, as soon as they opened it up, their reaction was like, "Oh." So yeah, this, I believe, was only ever intended to be the PDF that got made into a print book, or I don't know. That's I have to believe that, because this is a pretty major printing error as far as the usability of that book goes. So I endorse the product, and I am willing to buy it again to print out another copy of it. I'm disappointed that there will be people who judge the game based on the production quality of that book.
Man, it's such a charming game.
Yeah, I'm glad you showed it to me. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. Actually, I haven't fully read it yet, because I plan on getting the PDF to do that. But anyway, I've taken the step. I've taken one step closer to getting that to the table.
So you're going to play this with Scarlet?
That's the plan. And possibly with Abigail as our dice jockey. Dice caddy.
She's not quite at role-playing game capable yet?
Abby? No, she's still kind of not quite fully verbal, but loves dice.
Get a baby rattle with D4s in it.
Well, she's not a baby. She's 2.5.
Oh.
She's beyond a rattle. She's just not at creative thinking and communicating verbally yet.
That doesn't make sense, Ryan. There's only the two forms of children: baby and able to attend tournaments.
Well, then I guess she's a baby. Perram, something else you did recently that was super intriguing and that I really appreciated. Your review of Path Builder very much came in handy for my Emerald Spire game.
Oh yeah, that was fun to make.
Yeah, briefly talk about the video, and then I will tell one of many stories that came out of the most recent session of Emerald Spire that I played in.
So I really liked Path Builder, and 2E's just coming out. It was a perfect time to let people know this important resource existed. Also, it's basically, Path Builder is an Android app that is a really fantastic, easy to use character builder for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They also made a 1st Edition version, and my players loved that, which is why we tried this out, and it's great. I love it. I am going to be totally punching out characters on this thing if I need to make them in a hurry. And they're keeping it up to date with the books really fast, and it's free. It's ad supported. There is a premium unlock that gives some extra features, but
yeah, it's like $6.
You can totally just make your character without ever paying for that. And access almost all the content. And in the video, I knew, because maybe you don't want to use a phone, maybe you've got an iPhone. I showed you that you could use it on a computer using an Android emulator, and it would be super simple to do. And in the video description, I gave links to all the things you needed to do that.
So, that is what I did. We were going into the 4th session of Emerald Spire, I believe, and Will told us at the end of the previous session, bring your character leveled up to 2, but don't level up your character yet. Just mid-session, we expect to level up to 2. And so I had my Mono Hombre character sheet at level 1. I didn't want to just pencil in all of the things that would only apply at 2nd level. I had some time after work, but before the session, so I figured, all right, I am going to make a level 2 Mono Hombre and print it out. And so I downloaded everything you were saying to emulate it on my computer, and a little bit of a learning curve, but eventually I did figure it out, got pretty good with it, was very much able to make this character, even though it takes options from like the martial artist handbook and like a lot of smaller, more obscure things that came out during the end of the line. And like I have spreadsheets of how Mono Hombre works, because at second level I took a brawler level, which gives me martial flexibility, which means now I have access to a gazillion combat feats that will, you know, actually make him feel like he's got a full suite of wrestling moves and not just the one body slam over and over again. So anyway, I made out this whole character. I was really happy with it. And then in exporting it, I accidentally uploaded him to like a cloud service, a Pathfinder cloud, where all characters are going. So anyone who wants can just search my name and they will find this second level version of Mono Hombre as a downloadable character.
Oh, I didn't
but
know
what
it did
was
that.
great was I printed this out at work and then left it at work. And so arrived at the session without my character sheet. In fact, I didn't have either of my character sheets because I brought my level 1 version with me to work to base my second level one on, just to make sure it was consistent. So so I got there and I was like, wait, I uploaded this thing to the cloud, and now I just have to open my Path Builder on my phone, which is technically a different memory bank than the one that I did on the computer. So I didn't have it saved there, but I had it saved to the cloud. And so because of your video, I was able to print them out at 2 different locations, access them completely in 2 different ways, and just like your video opened up Path Builder's capacity even more, and I already really loved Path Builder.
Adam Daigle's asking if you can add custom material into Path Builder. You can,
Sure
but
can.
that is only available in 2nd edition, at least, if you get the premium version, which is like a one-time $5 purchase.
Just get the premium version, really. Like,
yeah, $5.
So you remember 2 weeks ago, I did my first blog installment of Paint to Play, where I made a Hell Knight signifier, which it ends up is very hard to make in 2nd edition because you have to jump through quite a few hoops to qualify for it. So for anyone that didn't read the blog post, so Hell Knight signifier is an archetype in character guide,
right?
And it has 2 prerequisites basically.
Yeah.
One of the prerequisites is spellcasting class feature, which became its own thing, and the other one is the Hell Knight Armiger archetype,
right?
Which you are allowed to take multiple Hell Knight archetypes without doing the usual thing where when you take an archetype, you need to take 2 feats within that archetype's category. Every
class,
archetype.
it's that archetype's class feat. You got to take.
There we go. That's it. So, okay, it's fine. This seems like a pretty direct path until I looked at the Armiger, which needs to be trained with its class or with the weapon of its order and heavy armor, which does not synergize well with something that needs spell casting. And so the number of class feats that Signifier? Daigle's correcting my Signifer.
Yeah.
No kidding. Signifer.
Somebody in the YouTube comments pointed that out a couple of episodes ago, that we have been mispronouncing it for 10 years.
A Signifer. No, I like Signifier better. I'm sticking to mine. No.
Oh no, thanks for the info, because
yeah, absolutely.
We don't,
we told Dustin, correct us.
As when you
We've
correct
been
us
spreading
here,
misinformation.
we don't have to come back in a future episode and say we got it wrong.
Yeah. So Signifer. So the number of class feats required to meet the prerequisite for the Armiger and to also be a caster, and exactly what the caster class feature means also limited some of my options. So it was like, wow, I need to find a lot of ways to just turn things into class feats. And so Path Builder was the only way I think I would have able to do that, because it let me like do potential paths, save them, change just something along the way, and gave me multiple different ways that I could do it. And I found the most efficient way that I could qualify for the Signifer and eventually make the character, which for a little while I was like, I don't know if this character does anything now, because I had to spend so much just getting the heavy armor and whatnot. But once I finally had the final character sheet printed out, I was like, oh no, this is kind of cool. I actually kind of want to see this character on the table.
Did you go the paladin route or did you go the feat route?
I went the feat route. I went with, because I don't even know if the paladin qualifies, because paladin only has focus spells, or champion, we should say,
Well,
only
to
has
get
focus spells.
to get
I don't
the
know
armor.
Right, but then how do you get spellcasting class feature?
You start as a wizard or a sorcerer. Then you take paladin as your dedication for...
The paladin education gets you the armor?
Yep.
Oh, I missed that. I was looking at fighter, and that doesn't get you the armor. Okay.
Fighters are
So there was
weapons,
another
paladins
route.
are armor.
Okay.
I know this
But then
because we
taking
have
another
one.
dedication would mean that much longer before I could get into the armature, because you have to take 2 class feats of the in this case the champion dedication. Yeah, there we go. That's what Dustin's saying. So I avoided taking a class dedication. I just went sorcerer, used the human ancestry feats that let me take general feats that let me take all the armor and weapon proficiencies I needed. It took a while, but I really feel like I know 2nd edition character building that much better now.
Yay! Pathfinder and Path Builder made it easier.
Path Builder made it possible.
And we're talking about this now, and a lot of people have been complaining that, 2nd edition, we've lost all these options. 2nd edition is very quickly trying to make up that ground. And 3 or 4 years from now of releases and all those feats and all those archetypes, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot to try to build off of.
Right. Well, and like I was talking about when we were talking about battle prayer, it feels like there was a lot of gates built into the core rulebook, and just like most of what I was doing with the Signifer was finding ways around the gates, and they are there, but it takes a lot more effort. And so
for people who find themselves very limited, adopted ancestry, human, natural ambition is a great combo to get a class feat.
Yes. Yeah, it was absolutely necessary. Otherwise, there was no way I would have qualified for the Signifer before like 15th level. And I think I qualified at 8th level. It was like every time I went through it, I found a new shorter route to getting to what I needed to do. I'm just loading up the article now. I don't know why it took this long to load it up, but just to confirm what level I was when I took Signifer.
And that's about the same level that you would have been able to accomplish it in 1st edition.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, 7th or 8th.
Prestige classes.
Yeah, I was an 8th level character when I got the Signifer dedication. And I barely even looked at the class feats that opened up for me. It's just, I did it. I had a mini that looked like a Signifer, and I made stats for him.
Adam's asking if we will be at PaizoCon.
My intention is yes.
Mm-hmm.
My plans are not set yet, but I think this time last year I was a lot less sure that I was making it. This year, I'm pretty sure I'm making it.
Yeah. I am definitely going to be at PaizoCon. It's Gen Con that's iffy.
Was it what?
It's Gen Con that's iffy. I'll probably have to be at Gen Con anyway, just because of network business. But I've been having less and less fun at that convention because it's just getting too big.
It's the con's fault, not just your responsibilities at Gen Con?
Yeah, the con it's getting stressful and unpleasant to organize that trip every year.
Okay, yeah.
But actually, I know I'm going to be
logistics going into it.
I know I'm going because I just got my press badge, so I have to go.
Now, I had a couple of other stories out of that Emerald Spire game. We are at 10 to 11. I think I've got time for, let's see. I'm going to do them in non-chronological order. That way, there is still the possibility that we get to both of them. Perram, let me tell you a story. Louis, someone who I've played with before, joined the Emerald Spire game for the first time. And he was playing a druid named Tree. And he had an ape companion, which you probably don't know this about Mono Hombre, but Mono Hombre has a problem with apes, even though he is the monkey man luchador.
Those are two different things.
And so, what's that?
That's two different things.
Sure. So yeah, so it led to a confrontation that led to just like a chess match of us not wanting to go into why we were being obtuse about certain things. And like, Will was the only person at the table who knew exactly what was going on. He knew the subtext to both of our arguments and both of why we were being weird. Louis and I both had one side of the story, and then the rest of the table had no idea what was going on, but was riveted by just how intensely we were just having this weird conversation about whether we could trust the ape.
I know what happened. You
Go
were
on.
playing Tsundere against a Tsundere ape.
What? I don't know what that means.
It's a character archetype used in anime where the very stubborn, I'm not going to express my true feelings right now, and I'm going to be all coy and angry about it.
So I think might be what Louis was doing. All right. I haven't gotten into this yet, but Will was pressing for everyone to write out their backstories. And you know that I find when I write out a backstory, I am less creative because now it's the information recall instead of the creative side of my brain. So I was like, all right, I need to write him a backstory because he really wants one, but I need to find one that will not at all interfere with my role playing. And so I wrote the most heavy metal of backstories where Mono Hombre is the son of, I forget the name of it, but the ape demon lord, who actually might even be in Gods and Magic. So there is a plane of hell that's just completely populated by demon apes. And Mono Hombre comes from there and is the son of the ape lord. And just at one point, the ape lord was talking about invading the material plane, and Mono Hombre stood with his back to the portal, and a army of thousands of these ape demons between him and his gigantic father. And he was just having this argument. And every time his father spoke, the apes nearest him would just disintegrate from the power of his voice. And so we had this major argument, and eventually the ape lord conceded that he would not attack the material plane, but he cast Mono Hombre to the material plane. He cast him from the sky. He fell from the sky. His face burnt off, which is why he wears a mask. He has no face. And so Mono Hombre is completely untrustworthy of any kind of ape creature because it could be from this plane. None of which anyone in the game knows. They just know I'm the monkey wrestler. And they don't even know I'm technically a tiefling, but they don't even know that. They just know I'm a dude with a mask and a tail. So anyway, that's why I was like, I don't trust this ape, and could not go into why. And Louis, I still don't know why he was being really weird about why he has this companion that's an ape, that it's like, no, it's fine. We can trust him. What ended up happening is we went to a church where a cleric of Abadar detected evil, which Louis did not realize was in a cone, and it revealed he's playing an evil character. The ape is fine. Although that first round where it's like presence of or absence of evil, there is evil. I'm like, But no, it ended up being Louis' character, and which Mono Hombre was totally fine with, as long as the ape is trustworthy. So anyway, at some point in there, Louis mentions that his first name is Tree, and that he asked me to guess his last name. And so I immediately went like, all right, it's Hugger, Beard, some other guess. And he was like, no, you didn't even let me finish. If you can guess my last name, then no, sorry. If you cannot guess my last name in 3 guesses, then you have to trust me and let me join the party. And I said no. And Louis was like, but it's a pun. And I was like, listen, I like puns, but Mono Hombre does not care about puns. And so the point of this story is that usually when people are like, it's what my character would do, they categorize it like that guy's just being a jerk, or he's trying to find an excuse not to do anything. But no, my love of puns is famous. But my desire to stay in character supersedes my love of puns. And so he did not bait me into doing something Mono Hombre would never do just because I, as the player, happen to love puns. So I still don't know what his character's full name is.
I'm glad you stood by your integrity there.
I stood by Mono Hombre's integrity.
But speaking of backstories, I tried a different approach with backstories, one I think you might have liked.
Okay.
I handed out index cards like I do because I love index cards. They're one of the most useful things to have as a GM for all sorts of reasons.
Agreed.
And I told them not to write me a background. Give me the 3 most important sentences about your character that I need to know.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And I got a range
do you have
of
any
stuff.
highlights?
Cool. One person told me that they very much dislike beer, but their family business is based on it, and he feels an obligation to continue to market it, even though he does not like it. And
Nice.
That was an interesting fact about the character.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually reminds me, Will's playing in another game where Will, the GM from Emerald Spire, he's playing a guy, I believe it's Bone Smasher, and he uses a rapier. And I was like, that's strange. And you just figure a guy like Bone Smasher's pretty straightforward, but it's like, no, he doesn't smash bones. His dad smashed bones, and his dad gave him the name Bone Smasher, but he prefers more elegant crit-based attacks. And so that's the kind of thing that you can make that into a single interesting sentence without going into a whole lot of detail about, other things about their relationship, because that's everything you need to know.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, has been pointed out many times, was Scar named Scar before he got the scar.
So sometimes we call Scarlet Scar, and she has definitely fallen on her face a couple of times and gotten some bad cuts. So we kind of go with you ever wonder why I got these scars?
I'm just glad you didn't take the approach of your scar, and I'm gonna make sure it matches.
No, why would I ever? We actually usually call her Scarl, which is just kind of not a great sounding nickname, but it's the most.
It's great if you're going to be a demon lord.
It's the one that came up most organically.
Oh, any more news? Sorry.
There was one last thing about combat during the Emerald Spire, but I'm ready to wrap things up. Maybe we can get to it. Excuse me, another time. It's spoilery too, so I'd rather avoid that.
Alrighty.
All right, we're going to wrap things up right after this.
Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups. Wrap-ups and shoutouts.
And we're back.
So I am just double checking. Dustin in chat found the name of the Monkey Lord. It is Angazan. And I just double checked, and Angazan is in fact in Gods and Magic. So he's just listed as a demon lord in the back. He's the Ravenous King. So if I did ever want to make a second edition worshiper of him, a deity or divine caster of Ankazan, I could.
But you would need to go get some more books to learn what they were like.
I've got the Pathfinder wiki for now. Thank you for joining us for episode 220 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast. Before we go, a couple of things we want to bring your attention to. I'm going to be I'm going to be continuing my shout outs to podcasts that I'm listening to. And I realized that, just double checking. So last week I shouted out to the Board Game Business Podcast. This time I'm shouting out to Board Game Design Lab. And I was wondering if I was going to have just a string of board game something podcasts. But no, it seems like this is the end of that trend. So the Board Game Design Lab is hosted by Gabe Barrett. It is a Dice Tower Network production. And he goes one-on-one interviews. He picks a designer that is known for a thing, tends to talk about the thing that they are known for or have an interest in talking about, but also talks broadly about them, broadly about the industry. It's like an all-encompassing thing. So similar to Board Game Business Podcast, which I shouted out to last time. If you're interested in the business side of actually entering into board game design business, I strongly recommend the Board Game Design Lab. It is probably the most on topic and the most direct approach to the topics that he talks about. And I have learned quite a bit from his from this podcast. So that's That's just my latest podcast that I'm shouting out to. There was one I listened to not too long ago with Erica Bujoris. She was talking about how she is kind of being shoehorned as the nature theme designer, but that's just because of the hundreds of games she's designed. She just happened to have 3 come out in the same year with a nature theme, one of which was not originally a nature theme. It was a foliage-based game that was originally about a type of hermit crab that decorates its shell. And so the story of how one game turned into the other one is really interesting. I have in my notes approximately 100 days to PaizoCon, but I saw that Darren Caldemeyer in chat said specifically we are 107 days until PaizoCon. So we are approaching the 3 months till PaizoCon, which is when you should be seriously making your PaizoCon plans. Adam Daigle did just ask us if we were planning on attending, and just to summarize, most likely. I actually have a bit of a plan that involves using the Patreon and a limited time offer of just a way to bump up and see if we can finally get to that con travel budget thing that's been our goal for a long time. We hit our $300 a month early and have stayed in that area for a long time. And I know that I don't do enough Patreon exclusive stuff to really drive up interest in it. So once again, I've got some idea to at least do it for a limited time basis, so that as we are approaching a con, we can maybe bump up interest so that people can help us, so that we can get the con covers that we are known for without it just, putting us all out personally. Perram, you want to tell people where they can find out about the Patreon and just other ways that you can get in touch with the podcast?
If you want to find anything we've talked about on No Direction, you go to nodirectionpodcast.com. Our Patreon link specifically is on the right. Or you can just go to patreon.com/nodirection. You can also find our Discord link there, which is the chillest, most relaxing place to hang out and chat about Pathfinder and Starfinder with a whole bunch of KD fans and the entire No Direction crew. We all hang out there. It's a great way to talk with us and to talk with other fans and just really be part of the community. As well, you can find our links to our Facebook and YouTube page, facebook.com/nodirection, youtube.com/nodirectionshow, also twitter.com/nodirection. Am I missing anything?
There's the Instagram that Tim runs.
Oh yeah, there's the unofficial, the fan run Instagram account, which is instagram.com/ I don't know. I just followed it. I don't know its address.
Yeah, it's Instagram. It's not about URLs. Instagram is mostly app-based.
Yep. And, of course, our new fan-run Minecraft server that you might have seen us hang out on a couple of Geek Togethers ago. That's, you just log onto the Discord, ask for access. They'll get you on there, and you can play with mostly Alex and James and Dustin.
By the way, this Friday, we've got another adventurous recording. You might be thinking, wasn't there just an adventurous recording? Yes, there was. And we are doing everything we can to make sure that we are staying regular with our recording schedule, which means we will be doing Fridays at 9 p.m. It will be about once a month. So we are still in the adjustment period where we're trying to figure out a regular Friday that we'll be recording this. So in the meantime, just know that when we do a recording for Adventurous, it is most likely going to be Friday at 9 p.m. Just which Friday of the month, we will have to figure it out. Also of note is that if you didn't watch the last one live, this episode is being recorded before the second half of the previous recording. Let me go to episode numbers so that this is clearer. The last Adventurous that was released was 29. Episode 30 was also previously recorded and is awaiting edit and release. But this Friday, episode 31 and 32 are going to be recorded. So if you are caught up with the stream but did not watch it live, then watching it live this Friday will mean that you are actually one episode ahead. And quite a bit happened in that second episode, so you might be kind of confused and you will definitely be spoiled. So,
an option you have is to go
at your own risk.
You can go to, if you are finding yourself in that spot, you can go to twitch.tv and go into our VODs, and you can watch the live recording there of last time and catch yourself up. But that's the one with all the warts and editing mistakes and breaks and random dog interventions and cat attacks.
So
and that one
dogs.
time a bear hit us.
Was there?
No.
Okay. I don't know. You live somewhere very remote, Perram.
It's been a long time since a bear has interrupted this podcast.
Wow. Also a programming note that next week we will have No Direction Beyond in this regular recording time slot. The week after that, I will not be here, and we are actually pre-recording something this weekend if all goes according to plan. So there will be something in 2 Thursdays from now that will be episode 221. But what happens on that Wednesday is up in the air. I am not available. I am going on vacation to Cuba, which I'm totally allowed to do as a Canadian. Just
they lifted that.
Sometimes people
ban.
raise an eyebrow when they're like, "You're going to how?"
That travel ban
Canada
got lifted.
is the answer. Yes. Yeah. So whatever happens there, Perram, that's I guess up to you, or maybe we'll have the week off. I don't know. So just don't expect episode 221 to be recorded at the regular time slot, but there will probably be something there. Until next time, which I guess will be 222 in March. Yeah, March 4th. Ooh, March 4th. That's Gem Day, isn't it?
And my birthday.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, if you're available to record on your birthday, Perram.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, we're going to have to do something special. We'll figure it out. So until then, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.